So in this article we are studying types of notes in zettelkasten. As we have understood in zettelkasten that every note is connected to each other, but we need to understand which notes are connected to each other, which are freely settled, and how one note differentiates from another. Let's talk about the first type of note, that's fleeting notes. Fleeting notes are basically the ideas that come into your mind in regular day-to-day basis. You might be thinking about something and it's a one short-liner thing that you just discovered about something. It might be a previous quote, a new thing that you just observed, a new thing that you just understood by your own. That would be a fleeting note. You just put this into the corner of fleeting notes in zettelkasten, which will later be used as permanent notes. And connecting literature notes. Now let's discuss what are literature notes. So basically, after reading a book, a blog, a news article, watching a video, or consuming information developed by a third person, you came up to your own conclusions and sometimes short summaries. So basically, these are conclusions, summaries, or we can say that briefs about anything that you've consumed just now, and this is what you make out of it. It is something that you write it in your own words, but basically is summary of something else. This would be considered as literature notes. So when we write literature notes, we need to understand and need to ask two questions. Why is this useful to me? And what is interesting about it? So after answering these questions, you will be able to write down their conclusions, summaries and briefs based on your own ideas, but on base of information of other person. Next type of notes are called permanent notes. Basically, these are the notes that actually form your real zettelkasten. They do not connect with each other. Fleeting notes are just created by your own thinking. Literature notes are also created by your own thinking, but after reading some other article or information. And permanent notes are basically the notes that you form from these two by checking how is it relevant to what you already know. While writing permanent notes, there are always confusions that which notes to write, which information to ignore, and how to write it. Permanent notes should be independent of literature they are based upon. When you're writing about literature notes, you always write about the references from where have you read those notes. But in permanent notes, it should be independent of any literature or any fleeting note. Whenever a person reads, you or any other person reads a permanent note, the permanent note should be self-obvious to itself. It should not be dependent upon any other note. Basically, you write complete sentences, complete references, and complete contexts in permanent notes. This is the way you are teaching your future self on what you have learned in your past. If you are writing, suppose you are writing about something which is obvious to you right now, but it might not be obvious to you after 3, 5 or 10 years or even 20 years. You should be writing in complete context and references and everything that you want to write about a particular thought, because you don't want your future self to think that your past is unreliable and cannot be dependent upon. Your permanent notes should be used for content creation in future directly from that permanent note without depending upon anything external. Just mark these words. It seems a bit of elaborated. Let's make them short. This is what you need to understand. Suppose you have wrote an idea and now you need to understand in future the way you will be writing it should be something like you are explaining this idea to someone else. While creating a permanent note, you need to think about questions you need to be asking yourself while creating permanent note. So these are the questions that you should be asking yourself while creating a permanent note. As you can see, all these questions are very much dependent upon what you already know and just adding some context to it. Just in case you have a question about what's the difference between literature and permanent notes, it can be easily clarified in this figure. All the literature notes are basically things that are not your own but consisted and enhanced or developed by a third party and not you. Permanent notes is everything that is relevant to you, and everything that is relevant to you is your own zettelkasten. So permanent notes are the basic essence of your own zettelkasten. Apart from that, what we need to discuss upon is the length of note. While writing fleeting notes, literature notes or permanent notes, we always think about what should be the ideal length of the note. The ideal length of the note should be dependent upon the clarification that you can give to a note in any number of words. Keep it as short as possible but not shorter. The difference here is that you need to keep the note relevant no matter how many lines you have to use it to explain it in clear, concise manner and not just overwriting it or under explaining it. So this is how you create 3 types of notes in zettelkasten. Let's get into summary of it. Fleeting notes are basically something that comes into your mind while you go throughout the day. This is another type of that's not even connected to literature notes or permanent notes. These are just independent notes. Literature notes, you write them after attending conference, studying something or listening to some other third person. And after that, permanent notes are always connected notes. After writing fleeting notes and literature notes, you can always create a new note that's already connected to the information that you already know. This is how you create all these 3 types of note. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.